Good evening, everybody. Yes, good evening. Let's start the class. We are supposed to start with. Is my voice clear? First of all, is the voice clear? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So let's start the class. Let me share my screen first. The next week, I suppose we'll be finishing the class within this week. That's my estimate. But let's see. At least if we need 14 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, that's the maximum thing. Let's see how the class goes. Right. Then another thing is we'll be having a lot of current affairs based discussion today, tomorrow, and with regard to the later classes. Also, we'll be having a lot of current affairs based discussion. Those things will be very useful for you in terms of prelims. So if you have been watching out for my lessons, like past 1 2 months, it'll be all mostly many current affairs based things will be coming up. So the next coming lectures also there will be a lot of current affairs. Out of that, today we are starting with a portion that is called as agriculture. Okay, there is a small bit of agriculture which is left. So we are starting with this part of agriculture. There, current affairs nu parayumbo, I would be dealing with ZBNF, zero budget natural farming, important for prelims. We'll be having vertical farming techniques. Vertical farming nu parayumbo, um, hydroponics, aquaponics, all sorts of vertical farming techniques will come. Organic farming practices, how it is different from natural farming. So these are the things which we'll be discussing from prelims, or you can say from the current affairs basis. Maybe this will take about two classes, 2 2 hour sessions, 4 hours. And then we'll be having one static part also. The static part of agriculture is about agro or agricultural regionalization. Agricultural regionalization. This I told you that I will take later. I will start today. And right. So that is about how we are going ahead with the classes. After that, we have two more chapters. Those are like completely current affairs, completely current affairs. So this is how we'll be going ahead with the classes. All right. Right. So any doubts? Anything with the progression of the classes? So let's start the class. Let's start the class. Right. If there is anything that comes up as a doubt with regard to the classes, just put it in the chat box. Right. So let's start. First of all, we are starting with the static part, which is give the heading as agricultural regionalization. Agricultural regionalization. So what is agricultural regionalization? First of all, one such agricultural regionalization, we saw it in the last class. What is that about? It was about Whittle says agricultural typological regions. Whittle says model. Whittle says 13 regions we saw, 13 regions we saw. This is one form of agricultural regionalization. From the Indian perspective also, we can regionalize our agriculture. So again, we are coming to that term again and again. What is regionalization? How can we regionalize agriculture? What is regionalization? How can I have agriculture. Certain crops are grown in certain places. I have my agriculture crops. Wheat is grown in some parts of North India. Rice is grown in some parts of coastal plain belt in the river delta region. There is a way, or there is a practice, or there is a cropping pattern which is followed in such a way that only certain crops are grown in certain regions. There is a spatial distribution in terms of agricultural crops. There is a way in which the agricultural crops are distributed throughout the country. There is a way in which there are certain cropping practices which is being followed. What is cropping practices? What is cropping practices? Monoculture is a cropping practice. Dryland farming is a cropping practice. Livestock or mixed farming is a cropping practice. There is a way in which agricultural resources, agricultural potential, and the types of crops which is grown varies from one place to another. Agricultural regionalization, it is an attempt to organize the different agricultural diversity which is present in India. We are trying to classify, we are trying to organize the different agricultural patterns which is present in India. This can be done in many ways. The first thing is, number one, the first thing is dominant crop regionalization. Dominant crop regionalization. What is a dominant crop? So understand, in any given region, in any region, South India, North India, whatever regions we live. If I'm talking about desert regions like Rajasthan, if I'm talking about desert regions of Rajasthan, usually there will be some oil seeds cultivation, millet cultivation. If I'm talking about South India, especially the Kaveri Delta region, there is a predominance of rice. If I'm talking about the Green Revolution belt, there is a predominance of wheat. A dominant crop regionalization for it refers to the first, it's otherwise called as first ranking crop regionalization. Which means, what is the predominant crop of that region? I'm going to classify it. So there can be a rice region, there can be a wheat region, there can be a cotton belt region in India, jute belt region in India, sugarcane belt region in India. What is the dominant crop? What is the dominant crop? Based on that, I'm going to regionalize it. This is one way of classification. There is a problem with this method of classification. There is a problem in this method of classification. What is the problem? The problem is, yes, we are having a dominant crop. We are having a dominant crop. But dominant crop regionalization, if I'm saying that Tamil Nadu is a rice region, if I'm saying Tamil Nadu is a rice region, Kerala is a coconut region, West Bengal is a jute region, then does that mean for scientific study, for the purposes of scientific study, is it like there is no other crop which is grown in this region? No. Tamil Nadu has many crops. Kerala has got many crops. We have cash crops in Kerala. What sort of cash crops? Best example is rubber. We have plantation crops like cashew nut, coffee. So Kerala is blessed with so many types of agriculture, not just coconut. But if I'm classifying it as a coconut region, or if I'm going to classify it as a rubber region, it's in fact in India it is the top producer of rubber. If I'm going to classify it as a rubber region, is it correct? Is it valid? No. So that's the reason the flaw with the first system of classification is we consider monoculture of crops. The flaw is we consider that every region is like a monoculture region. Monoculture region only one crop is being grown. Angana oru description or angana oru thought vechittana nammal classify cheyyunnathu. But sherikum adu angana alla. There are so many other crops also which is grown along with the dominant crops. But we neglect or we do not consider those crops in the first type of classification. So there is another type of classification which rectifies the first flaw, the flaw in the first method, which is crop combination region. Crop combination regionalization. Crop combination regionalization. What is crop combination? From the name itself, we can understand something. If I have a rice region, I will combine it with some other crops, maybe sugarcane. Most of the understand this. Most of the rice region is blended, or is you can find the influence of sugarcane in rice belt. Like if I'm talking about Karnataka, if I'm talking about Tamil Nadu, it's majorly rice belt. So it's majorly rice belt. But there is an influence of sugarcane even in these regions. If I'm talking about Maharashtra, there is an influence of rice and sugarcane. So there is a combination of rice and sugarcane. There is also, apart from rice and sugarcane can be grown when there is good rainfall. What are the other crops that can be grown? I can grow pulses. I can grow millets. Similarly, if I'm talking about cotton dominant regions, I'm just taking examples. Take this down as example number 1, example number 2. If I'm talking about a cotton dominant region, regionalization or cotton dominant region, what crops can I grow along with cotton? Common sense, Anna. Cotton does not require that much amount of rainfall. Cotton is already grown in a water starved region. I repeat, cotton is already grown in a very dry region. So with cotton, what sort of crops can I grow? Millets, maybe groundnuts or oil seeds. Oil seeds. Groundnut is an oil seed. Groundnut oil. So groundnut is an oil seed. So millets, groundnuts, such things. So what is happening here? I am removing, in this classification, I am removing the flaw in the first method, which is the flaw of monoculture, removing the practice of monoculture, or removing the conception, the misconception of monoculture. Removing the misconception of monoculture, I have a new methodology of regionalization, which I call it as crop combination regionalization. No part of India, this is an important statement that I would like to make. No part of India practices exclusive monoculture. So is monoculture good or monoculture bad? Monoculture is bad. Why? Because it depletes your soil of its nutrients. So monoculturing is bad. Let's go to the third methodology. The third methodology is about productivity regionalization. It is about productivity regionalization. Now, 2-3 points we can add in the first method, crop combination regionalization. Please take down a couple of points alone you can take down. As a part of subsistence farming, which is practiced in most parts of India, as a part of subsistence farming, which is practiced in most parts of India, and also for agricultural risk diversification. Please underline this. Agricultural risk diversification. Mostly farm crops and non-farm crops. are included in a scientific manner in the form of crop combination technique, in the form of combination technique. It was Weaver, Weaver. It was Weaver in 1954 who gave the first scientific technique in crop combination analysis. His method was modified by Kapok and Doyle. His method, so he was the first person, Weaver was the first person to give some idea with regard to how you can combine a crop, one crop with another crop. ഇങ്ങനെയാണോ combine ചെയ്യുന്നത്? അതിനെ വെച്ചിട്ട് നമ്മൾ എങ്ങനെയാണോ regionalization practices or regionalization analysis എങ്ങനെയാണോ ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്? അതിന് first of all, someone who brought that technique first was Weaver. Okay, and who modified it? It was Kapok and Doyle. It was Kapok and Doyle who modified the method which was brought by Weaver. This was later practiced by, or this was later adopted by many Indian scientists with regard to Indian crop combination analysis. And this includes agricultural scientists like Singh and Dillon, Randhawa, and Mohammad Shafi. Out of that, these people are important. Singh and Dillon and Randhawa, especially Randhawa classification is quite important. We will be discussing this in detail. In India, Singh and Dillon identified 30 crop combination, 30 crop combination, and Kapok and Doyle identified 23 crop combinations, including non-crops like fisheries and livestock. Non-crops like fisheries and livestock. So what did Randhawa do with regard to crop combinations? What did Randhawa do with regard to crop combinations, or what was Randhava's classification? We will be doing that in a short while. Okay, that's quite important. So we will be discussing that in detail. Number 3 or third method of classification is productivity regionalization. Productivity regionalization. If you observe method number 1 and method number 2, we were primarily discussing about what crops are grown in what region. What are we doing? What crops are being grown in what region? That's our method of classification with regard to the first method and with regard to the second method. Here, I'm not going to be discussing just about crops. I am going to discuss about productivity of that particular land. Productivity of that particular land, which is called as land capability zonation. I am going to discuss about how much or how that land can be productively cultivated. I'm not just going to talk about crops. No, I'm going to discuss about how is the productivity of that land going to be influenced, how the productivity of the land is going to be influenced by mechanization, by the amount of fertilizers I'm using, my inputs, seeds, fertilizers, irrigation, my inputs, intensive inputs ആണ് കൊടുക്കുന്നത് depending on my input management, depending on my degree of mechanization, depending on my supporting infrastructure, power undo, is there proper power? Can I supply pump water into my field? What about the soil capacity of that particular agricultural land? All that will together decide my productivity regionalization. And follow me very closely here. Okay, follow me very, very closely here. One of the best example of productivity regionalization is Whittle-Say's method. Why? Because there, what did we read? We read about some things like, is your farming going to be commercial grain farming? We read about 13 regions, right? One of that region is commercial grain farming. So is my farming going to be commercial grain farming? Or is it going to be intensive subsistence agriculture? Or is it going to be nomadic herding? These are all nothing but different types of mentioning productivity. Commercial, the productivity, the output, the yield of my farm is going to be extremely higher. The yield of my farm is going to be extremely high. When I'm talking about subsistence, the yield is going to be low. So how is my productivity going to depend on these factors? So Whittle-Say's method is an example of productivity regionalization. And why do we call it as a productivity method? Because he is talking about how my agricultural patterns is going to be influenced by the capability of the land. All right. Some of the other scientists who have mentioned about productivity regionalization, one important scientist alone, I'm telling you, not one, but two people, just remember this. Either this is brownie points. If you write, it will be good. Even if you don't write, it's okay. Galina and Diasuk. Galina and Diasuk. S is silent here. So Galina and Diasuk. They have also given a method of productivity regionalization. All right. Let's go on to the next method. And here comes, from here onwards, it becomes very, very important for your optionals. So listen closely. These, whatever we have dealt till now, dominant crop region, crop combination region, productivity region, all of this is one type of agricultural regionalization. But the most important amongst them is agricultural climatic regionalization. One second. It's called as ACR, agricultural or agro climatic regionalization. ACR, agricultural or agro climatic regionalization. And the next method is agro ecological regionalization. These two things are very, very important. Right. So let's start with agricultural or agro climatic regionalization. Agro climatic regionalization. India is an agricultural country. We are dependent on one resource, which is agriculture. Primarily, that's our basic economic activity. But agriculture at the end of the day depends on the climate of the nation. Agriculture is driven by the monsoons. Agriculture is driven by the climate of that particular place. So based on my climate also, I can classify agriculture. Yes or no? Based on my climate also, I can classify my agriculture. And one such method of dividing agricultural regions or spatial analysis of agricultural region based on climate is defined by spatial categorization or spatial analysis of agricultural patterns, spatial classification on the basis of the climate. Spatial classification of what? Agricultural landscape. So spatial classification of my agricultural landscape based on climate as an important factor is driven by agroclimatic regionalization. And agroclimatic regionalization is most important for governmental planning purposes. For governmental planning, or you can say policy making purposes with regard to agriculture. For the purpose of planning, for the purpose of policy making in terms of agriculture, what sort of planning do I use? I use what is known as agroclimatic regionalization. All right. Agroclimatic regionalization, one person who brought an excellent way of dividing my agricultural landscape on the basis of climate. One person who has contributed excellently is Randava. So Randava's regionalization, Randava's agricultural regionalization is primarily based on the climatic pattern. It also includes crops. It also includes the cropping pattern. But the primary important factor is climate. So the one way of dividing India into different agricultural climatic zones is done by Randava. All right. So let's discuss about Randava's method. Right. Any doubts in these points which we have discussed till now? Any doubts on these things? Can we go ahead? I think we can. Any doubts that you have? Anything? Okay. Okay, perfect then. Right. So we'll continue. Let me erase this. We have to draw a map. So what I want you to do is draw it with me. It's there available in Cooler. It is available in Cooler, but I want you to draw it along with me. Draw it not along with me. First of all, see what I'm drawing and then try to draw it on your books. Okay. So listen. Agroclimatic regionalization. Planning Commission adopted Planning Commission adopted the technique which was given by Randava. His methodology has been utilized by the Planning Commission, to come up with methods of different classification of agroclimatic regions in the country. So the first thing that we need to know is, just a second. Okay, so the first thing that we need to know is what about Randava's practice? അതിനെ എങ്ങനെയാണോ planning commission modify ചെയ്ത് how did they utilize it? So Randava, first of all, he came up with 5 regions, 5 agricultural regions, 5 agroclimatic regions in the country. So his idea of dividing the 5 regions is basically majorly climate, and another factor is crop. So 5 ACR, or 5 different regions in the country, was the pattern that was given under Randava's ACR method. So the first region that he gave was number 1, the temperate Himalayan region. The Himalayas, the temperate Himalayan region. I'll write it down. Temperate Himalayan region. Number two, the dry northern wheat region. Eastern rice region. Malabar coconut region. And finally, number 5, the southern millet region. Southern millet region. Okay. So what has he done here? The one thing is, if you observe these types of classification, let's analyze them individually, starting from temperate Himalayan region. If you observe this region, temperate Himalayan region, Himalayas, I can divide it into 2 types or 2 areas. One is my eastern side, the Purvanchal region. If you observe this map, this part, we call it as my eastern Himalayas, my Purvanchal Himalayas. This side is going to be very, very rainy. My eastern Himalayas is going to be very, very rainy. My western part of Himalayas is going to be dry when compared to this part. Especially my Ladakh, this region, my Kashmir Himalayas mostly falls under scanty rainfall region, very low rainfall region. So my western portions of Himalayas is going to be dry. My eastern Himalayas is going to be rainy. So this temperate Himalayan region can be subdivided into 2 types, which is my eastern part, rainy part, western part, which is my dry part. And he says, on the basis of climate, I can further subdivide it into 2 zones, which is my rainy part and my dry part. In my rainy part, I will have some intense water needed crops. You need a lot of water. What do you call? Not water guzzling, but crops which require more water, like rice, tea. Northeast rice uttri cultivate cheyunnundu, especially with regard to Brahmaputra, Assam region, the plains region, the plains. See, if you observe the northeastern region, if you observe like a rough map, I cannot erase. If I erase the whole thing, okay. Now understand, if I'm drawing a rough map, Meghalaya. If I take this belt into account, here I have Garo Khasi Hills. In the north, I have my Himalayan ranges. Here also I have my eastern extension of my Himalayas. But in the middle, this portion, we call it as the Assam Plain region. Assam Plain region, there they cultivate a lot of rice. So not just in Assam, it's a combination of Assam, portions of Nagaland, Manipur, and all of that. So there they cultivate some portions of some quantities of rice. Okay, so the eastern part is actually rice and tea crops are grown in my western parts. I have some dry fruits, saffron, dry fruits, saffron. I also have so dry fruits. I'll be having your badam is there, no? Badam, your dried grapes, raisins. Yes, raisins. So these kinds of things, walnut, apples. How can you forget apples? Entire belt of Himachal Pradesh, Shimla region. Even in Kerala, you get what is called as Shimla apple. Everywhere you have Shimla apple. So apples is one another crop. Walnut, basically dry fruits, badam, walnuts. So these kinds of crops are grown in the drier portions. This is my first region. My second region is wheat belt. It is a wheat belt, but wheat, I've told you again and again, 75 centimeters are not more than that. So 75 centimeters in Varambo, it's actually pretty dry. It's a very dry region. So my dry northern wheat belt includes the states of Punjab, Haryana, UP. Then I have parts of Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, very important, Rajasthan, this side. So northwestern or the north wheat region comprises of these states, and they are majorly growing crops of wheat because they receive a rainfall which is roughly about 75 centimeters, which is roughly about 75 centimeters. Thanks to irrigation, canal irrigation, thanks to canal irrigation, thanks to canal irrigation and green revolution, because of canal irrigation and green revolution, a lot of regions, even in the drier portions of Rajasthan, have been brought under wheat cultivation. Then in the south, then in the east, I have the rice region. Rice region, Varambo, West Bengal is a rice region. Odisha is an excellent example of rice region. Similarly, my regions around Andhra Pradesh, that is also a rice region. So this region records more than 100 centimeters, 125, more than 125 centimeters of rainfall, and therefore it is an rice region. Also, because of the presence of many rivers, peninsular rivers, it is fed by many peninsular rivers. It is fed by many peninsular rivers like Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and further down, I have Kaveri. So this portion receives a lot of river water, and therefore they have rice cultivation. They have rice cultivation. So this belt includes the eastern rice belt in the Varambo. It includes coastal plains. It includes the coastal plain region of these states whichever I have mentioned. And then coming to the Malabar coconut belt. Malabar coconut belt, so right all along my western coastal plains, from Maharashtra, Karnataka, down south in Kerala, they are all examples of coconut crop as well as some plantation crops like rubber, coffee, cashew nut. Think of Kerala. These are the major crops. Cash crops no Varambo. When always see paper 2, when you are writing an answer, listen to this carefully. When you are writing an answer in paper 2, always imagine, or when you are not able to answer, uh, understand or think about some states. Okay, if I'm talking about Maharashtra, these are the broad characters. If I'm talking about Kerala, these are the broad characters. So if I'm talking about Malabar coconut region, what are the other crops grown in Kerala? Cashew nut is one such crop. Yes. Then they have rubber. We spoke about rubber. And then you have coffee. So these are the major crops which is grown in this region. And as you need to talk about the rainfall patterns also. Excellent monsoonal rainfall, southwest monsoonal rainfall, greater than 200 centimeters. All right. And you have presence of lateritic soils also. And then southern millet region. Now, this includes the drier portions of Deccan interiors, the plateau interiors. which means I am talking about the leeward side of Western Ghats, which means I am talking about my interior parts of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, interior portions of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, I'm not Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and going up above, I can have my Marathwada, Vidarbha regions of Maharashtra and the drier regions of Madhya Pradesh and the drier portions of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, that region. It is my millet region. It is my millet region. All right. So this is my classification. Randava's classification. Randava's classification. All right. Any doubts in this part? So that we can go on to what the Planning Commission has done to that. The second portion, the second half of this classification. If I consider this as a movie, this is the first half of it. What Planning Commission did is the second portion of it. Any doubts in the first half, the 5 classification? Right? So maybe you can interact a bit more because we have a lot of online classes which is coming up. Maybe interact a bit more. All right. So let's go ahead. Planning Commission. Planning Commission, what they did with regard to Randava's classification. Randava gave a 5 method of classification, 5 method of agroclimatic regionalization. Planning Commission approved it. Planning Commission approved it. They liked it. But they tried to develop the idea which has been given by Randava. They tried to develop it and an organization which supported the ACR methodology, which is to be created by the Planning Commission for planning purposes, is ICAR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, plus the National Remote Sensing Agency. What happened? Randava gave a set of 5 agroclimatic regionalization pattern. Who used it? Planning Commission tried to use it. Why did they use it? In order to make planning for the entire country, agricultural planning for the entire country. Can Planning Commission alone do it? No. They needed some expert advice also. Who are the experts? Indian Council of Agricultural Research plus National Remote Sensing Agency. Why Remote Sensing Agency? What do they do? So agricultural ICAR, they do agricultural research. They say, please grow this crop in this region. Your field will be very good. Please do this. Please sow wheat crop during this time of the year. Rain is going to come. Please do this. So these kinds of information that is required by the farmers and the research which is needed for improving agricultural productivity is done by ICAR. Now, what does NRSA do? NRSA remote sensing. Remote sensing using satellites, they will analyze which is the area which can be favorably grown, which can be the favorable area for a particular crop cultivation. So the remote sensing using satellites, they try to understand the land capability as well as using the climatic patterns. They come to a conclusion. They try to come to a conclusion. If I grow this crop in this region at this part of the time, it will be good because I can see favorable monsoons. If there is a lack of monsoons, what will they do? They will say, please indulge in dry land farming. So these kinds of advice will be given by ICAR and NRSA. Right. They both said, and Planning Commission finally came up with an ACR where there was 15 agroclimatic zones, where there was 15 agroclimatic zones. What are those 15 zones? First of all, take it down, number one. First of all, take it down, number one. Then we will try to draw a map. Number one, Eastern Himalayas. Number two, Western Himalayas. Three, Lower Ganga Plains. Four, Mid Ganga Plain. Five, Upper Ganga Plain. Six, Western Dry Regions. Western Dry Regions. Seven, Trans Ganga Plain. Gujarat Plain. Eastern Plateau and Hills. Eastern Plateau and Hills. Northern Plateau and Hills. Central Plateau and Hills. Southern Plateau and Hills. Eastern Coastal Plains. Western Coastal Plains. Number 15, the last one, island regions. Okay, 15 different types of agroclimatic regions of the country. Let's try to plot this in a map. Please try to draw this map along with me, and then we will analyze them. What regions are we talking about? A rough map would be enough. So it's going out of proportion. Anyways, that's okay. Right. Now look at this. Okay, fine. Now look at this. Have you drawn a decent map for yourself? Have you done that?
Yes, ma'am.
It's nice even if you have, if you can cope up with what we are doing. It would be nice if you could draw a map even in your book. It's given in many textbooks, but I would say draw a map in your book also. Right. So this, the first one that we talked about is Eastern Himalayas. The first one that we talked about is Eastern Himalayan region. So I am talking about Sikkim as well as all the what you call as the sisters of Northeast. With Sikkim, we call it as the seven sisters of the Northeast. So those sisters of the Northeast, Eastern Himalayas, നമ്മൾ പറയുമ്പോൾ Eastern Himalayas എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ it includes the Purvanchal Hills, the eastern portions of Himalayas, whatever mountains that come here, as well as Sikkim together, the Purvanchal Hills, the eastern Himalaya portion, along with Sikkim together, we are talking about that as number one, Eastern Himalayas. So here now, as you draw the picture somewhere next to it, take some running notes also. When I'm discussing about Eastern Himalayas, what is the first thing that will come to your mind? The first thing is it receives the highest amounts of rainfall in the country. So greater than 200 or 250 centimeters of rainfall, 250 centimeters of rainfall. But what is happening? Now, this is a quick question. I have already explained to you this before. Meghalaya receives, just a second. Meghalaya receives maximum amount of rainfall. But is Meghalaya productive? Is Meghalaya agriculturally productive? Is the soils in Meghalaya fertile? Yes, no? No, right. It's not fertile. In fact, that's a part of your NCERT book also. And ഞാൻ ഇത് മുൻപേ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ളതാണ്. It's not fertile. Why? Because it's been undergoing, especially this portion. This is where this flat region is where Meghalaya comes. It's like this. So this portion, it receives your entire Bay of Bengal branch or rainfall. It completely receives. The problem is this plateau region is completely devoid of vegetation. It is devoid of vegetation. It is highly prone to devoid of vegetation. It's not like a desert. It is devoid of permanent vegetation. It will erode sometime. There is no permanent vegetation. Meghalaya region. So it's highly prone to soil erosion. So what happens here is this portion, number one, the region number one, the region is not very productive. The region is not very productive. And in those areas where you have good thick forest, like namada rainforest, equatorial rainforest, wherever you find it, soil erosion will not take place there, but the red brown soil which is present there, it's not very favorable for cultivation. Also, that intense thick forest clear cheyan paadana. So these are the problems with regard to improvement of agriculture in this region. Another thing is, what sort of agriculture takes place in this region? What sort of agriculture takes place in this region? Subsistence, very, very precisely give me that word, no? It is subsistence, productivity is low. You know it. In Paraimbo, think about it. What sort of agricultural pattern takes place in the northeastern parts of the country? Shifting cultivation, exactly. Slash and burn cultivation. Yes, that's correct. Shifting cultivation or slash and burn cultivation. Now tell me, is shifting cultivation other productive method or no? In fact, you yourself answered it. It is a subsistence method. The soil will not be fertile for long enough. So another problem with the agriculture is it is following a very primitive shifting method or zooming or slash and burn. Burn it. Use that field for 1 year or something, move on to the next area. So this is slash and burn cultivation, right? So because of the productivity of the soil, because of the fertility of the soil, and because of the rugged topography, agriculture, agriculture, the scope of agriculture is very, very limited. The scope of agriculture is very, very limited. But what is the climatically, if I'm talking about? We are talking about climate regions, Anna. Climatically, what is the advantage with regard to this region? Greater than 200 or 200 to 250 centimeters of rainfall. One big advantage. One big advantage. Now, in totality, if I'm talking about this entire region, therefore, I can say crops like rice, tea, rice, tea, and some horticultural fruit crops like pineapples, oranges. These will be grown in this particular region. But what is the problem with regard to this region? Problem is because of the rugged topography, infrastructure facilities. നമുക്ക് infrastructure വളരെ ആവശ്യമാണ് when I'm talking about agriculture. Because I need power, I need seeds, I need fertilizers, I need irrigation. So because of that, ഇങ്ങനത്തെ infrastructure, the so-called agricultural inputs, അവിടെ കൊണ്ടുവരാനായിട്ട് it becomes very, very difficult. Okay, so that is roughly the problem with regard to Eastern Himalayas. Now let's go to the next part, which is my Western Himalayas. This is number one. Okay, so let's go to the next one, number one, and let's go to the next one. Number two, which is my Western Himalayas. The entire portion that covers all my, completely my Western Himalayas, that includes Western Himalayas, that includes my Jammu and Kashmir region, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. So you have Jammu and Kashmir. This portion is my Uttarakhand region, and here somewhere I will be having my Himachal Pradesh. Here somewhere I'll be having my Himachal Pradesh region. So this region is what I call it as my Western Himalayan region, or otherwise make it very narrow so that Punjab and Haryana should not be covered. So this is my number two. Now, then comes, okay, we have not discussed, okay, Western Himalayan region. Take some running notes. So it covers my states of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. It is a dry portion of Himalayas. It mostly, rainfall will be very less, and those rainfall which takes place in this region will be in the form of, the precipitation will be mostly in the form of snowfall. Precipitation mostly in the form of snowfall. So you can have the presence of snow-covered peaks, some deciduous trees, and in the higher altitudes, I can even see some coniferous trees. In terms of climate, if I'm talking about this region, in terms of climate, during the winters, there will be extremely severe cold conditions, and summer season is actually mild. very severe cold conditions, which is like you can have temperatures of about, in the months of January, you can have temperatures of about -4 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius. Very, very cold, severe winters. In the summer, the season is actually pretty mild. Even the little amount of rainfall that you receive, the precipitation is in the form of snowfall. And because of harsh winter conditions, agriculture during the winter times is pretty difficult. Here also, I will be having the cultivation of horticultural crops, also known as orchards. 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 So I'll be having my saffron cultivation, very, very high quality saffron cultivation, apples, almonds, walnut, dry fruits. So dry fruits, apricot, walnut, almonds. I'll be having saffron. So these are the major crops which is grown in this region. Apart from that, I have the excellent phenomenon which is transhumance. Which is transhumance. So example, you can talk about gujars, you can talk about bakarwals. Now, what is the problem behind this region? What is the problem? Soil erosion, landslides is a problem. Soil erosion, landslides, rugged topography, which means my transportation becomes very difficult. Yes, so these are roughly the problems with regard to this particular region. All right. So that covers my second region. Now let's move on to the third one, which is my lower Gangetic plains. Now Gangetic plains can be divided, maybe if I'm talking about Gangetic plains, I can talk about this entire belt is my Gangetic plain. This entire belt is my Gangetic plain. Let's start from here. This portion is my lower Gangetic plain. And then comes my maybe, and then comes my middle Gangetic plain, and then comes my upper Gangetic plains, and finally I'll be having the Trans Ganga plains. I'll be having the Trans Ganga plains. Okay, so this is the order. This is the order: 3, 4, 5, and 6. Lower Ganga, mid Ganga, upper Ganga, Trans Ganga. Yes, this order. All right. Let's first talk about my lower Gangetic plains. Let's first talk about lower Gangetic plains. Number 3, lower Gangetic plains. It includes, primarily, it includes the state of West Bengal. That is my lower, proper lower Gangetic plain, that's my West Bengal region. So West Bengal, as soon as I tell you the name West Bengal, what's the thing that you get in your mind? Jute, sugarcane. Yes, those are the important regions. So my lower Gangetic plain region comprises of states like West Bengal, Bihar, all right, West Bengal, Bihar, eastern portions of Bihar, these regions. Climatic condition Bati Parembo, it receives a rainfall about 100 to 200 centimeters. So good rainfall on 100 to 200 centimeters. Rice, you have jute, rice, jute. These are the major crops which is grown in this region. Take down an important point with regard to prelims. In this region, in region number 3, I have three cropping seasons. I have three cropping seasons. This can come in a MCQ, in an objective type of question. The first one is Aman, Os, and Boro. These are Bengali terms, but these are three cropping seasons for rice. Aman, Os, and Boro. Okay, so the questions, I've seen questions like this. What does the word Aman, Os, and Boro signify? And one thing can be Juming cultivation, another thing can be A, Juming cultivation, B, rice patterns. Next one can be different things can like that can come. So this is an important term, Aman, Os, and Boro. Right. The idea behind the third region, one important thing, future scope of developing third region, the future scope of developing lower Gangetic plains is future scope in editor. You can write, we can develop pisciculture, fishing, pisciculture in this region. Similarly, we can increase livestock rearing in this region. Okay. Now going on to the fourth part, which is my mid-Gangetic plain, very fertile plains. Now understand, it's a fertile plain drained by the rivers of Ganga and its tributaries. Rice and wheat is the major crop in this region, rice and wheat. There are also other crops like millets, mustard, potato, which is grown in this belt. Now, potato is something that you can write in number 3. Remember this. This is a trick. Potato, you can write it here, right here. You can write it here. You can write it here. You can write it here. Wherever you find you don't know crops to fill, no. In this part, clue on wherever you don't know what crops to write wheat. If I'm talking about this rainier side, I'm sorry, drier side. I mean, what happens? Actually, if I'm talking about Western UP, this portion, it falls under the comparatively my Bengal plains and all. It's pretty rainier, right? It's pretty rainier. So wherever if I have my West Bengal is pretty rainier. So if I have rainier portion, you can also write wheat plus rice. If it is a dry region, do not write rice. Talk about some millets. Talk about millets. Okay, this is a clue. This is a jugad, maybe a clue. It works in most of the areas. Right. Potato, it's grown here in the middle Gangetic plains. You have the western UP and eastern UP. There are two belts. Now, understand with regard to UP, I have my western UP, I have my eastern UP. Western UP has a benefit of good irrigation. Eastern UP does not have good irrigation. Therefore, Western UP has many crops like what do you call this, wheat and all that. Whereas Eastern UP has got some dry crops like millets. Okay. Now let's go further. Number 5, fifth region, Upper Gangetic Plains. So it includes parts of the western parts of UP, Haridwar, that region, and I also have some portions of Uttarakhand. Some portions of Uttarakhand. Now the climate, if I'm talking about the climate, that rainfall is about 75 to some 100 centimeters, 150 centimeters, 75 to 150 centimeters of rainfall. The advantage, as I've just now mentioned to you, the advantage is it is a green revolution belt on. It has an advantage with respect to good irrigation. It is intensively cultivated. And I have crops like wheat, rice, and sugarcane here. Because of the presence of canal irrigation, I have crops like wheat, rice, and sugarcane. And then finally, number 6, I have Trans-Ganga Plains. Trans-Ganga Plains, it extends towards the regions of, I have to draw it like this, yes. It extends towards the regions of Punjab, Haryana. It extends over the regions of Punjab, Haryana, right up to Rajasthan. Right up to Rajasthan. What is the climate? The climate is about, I have less rainfall here. It varies between 65 to 100 centimeters of rainfall, 65 or 60 to 100 centimeters of rainfall. The intensity of agriculture in this region is the highest in the country. The intensity of agriculture in this region is highest in the country because of green revolution. Because of green revolution. But increasingly, we are seeing problems of water salinity, water logging, soil erosion, etc. And then let's move on to the next region that we have. Please check your numberings. I'm not sure. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞ നമ്പറും ഇവിടെ ഇടുന്ന നമ്പറും സെയിം ആണോ എന്ന് എനിക്കറിയത്തില്ല. So just make sure that you have the numberings properly. Seventh one is I'm talking about my Gujarat plain is this part. 8 is Gujarat plain. The 7th one is my western dry region. Look at this, all the parts of dry portions of Rajasthan is falling under the 7th region. Drier portions of Rajasthan falls under the 7th region. Now in this portion, I'm talking with 7th part, which I have numbered here. In this portion, will I have good amount of rainfall? No. Now the next question is, so what sort of crops can I grow here? What sort of crops can I grow here? Mostly I will have crops like millets. I will be having crops like millets, mostly bajra, jowar, millets are. So it's a very arid region. It is the dry portions of Rajasthan. We call it as the Marustali region. Heard of this term? Marustali? Marustali region. It is the Marustali region of India. Very dry, very arid portions. This region usually spreads over the desert plains of the desert regions of Rajasthan. The temperature will be very, very high. There will be high evaporation, very low precipitation. Precipitation will be even lesser than 30 centimeters. Precipitation will be lesser than 30 centimeters. 20 will be lesser than 20 to 30 centimeters. Millets are the major crops which is grown here. The most important agricultural activity is livestock rearing. It is livestock. Namak agriculture illengil, that farmers have to have a way of source of income. So that there we have livestock contributing to the major agricultural economy. For future development, future scope future development, I need to invest in terms of rainwater harvesting, adopting traditional water harvesting practices or traditional irrigation practices, traditional water harvesting practices, adopting um, dryland farming techniques, and developing drought resistant seeds. Developing drought resistant seeds. Okay, so that is my seventh region. Now coming on to the next one, which is my Gujarat plains. Eighth region is actually my Gujarat plains. Here, the region is actually fertile because of two rivers. One is Mahi River and the other one is the Sabarmati River. Because of these two rivers, the alluvium which is brought down by these two rivers, the region is pretty fertile. But the problem is, again, this is an arid region. This is arid, semi-arid region. This is a arid, semi-arid region. But because of the fertile soils which is being brought down by these two rivers, what are the two rivers? Mahi right? It's an important oil seed producing region of country. Oil seed producing region, especially mustard oil. Mustard is very importantly grown in this region. And then I have my um, oil seeds, mustard, groundnut, mustard and groundnut, oil seeds, millets. These are the crops which is mostly grown in cotton. How can I forget cotton? Maharashtra, parts of Gujarat, everything has some black cotton soil. So cotton is another important crop. All right. Now moving on to the next region, let me talk about the coastal plains and then we'll go to the interior plateau region. Please check your own book with regard to numbering. I don't know what numbers I have given previously. Okay, previous slide has got numbers, no? Eastern coastal plain, western coastal plain. 13 and 14. Okay, never mind. The numbers, you see it as per your numbering, but this is 9 and 10 for me. Okay, 9 and 10. Eastern coastal plains and western coastal plains. Now, with regard to eastern coastal plains, I have it starting from right from Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and then up to Tamil Nadu. So this is my eastern coastal plains. So variety of crops is grown here. Good amount of rainfall also I receive, close to 75 to up to 150 centimeters. But mostly what rainfall will I get here? I will be getting cyclonic rainfall, which is uh, brought during the northeastern monsoon times. Cyclonic rainfall on it. This region comprises of my Odisha coast, called as the Sarkar, Utkal Plains, Utkal Plains or Northern Sarkar Plains. Then I have my uh, my um, Andhra Pradesh plains, and I have my Tamil Nadu plain region called as the Coromandel Coast region. Now, the soils, coming to talk about the soil, first of all, everywhere it is alluvial soil. Everywhere it is alluvial soil, which is brought down by the rivers. So I have all my rivers like I have my Godavari, starting from Godavari, Mahanadi, Krishna, and then followed by Kaveri. I have all the rivers. Mostly the crops are like rice, jute. In the top parts, let's analyze them region by region. Odisha Anangil, I'll be having mostly jute and rice and some portions of sugarcane. In Tamil Nadu also it's like rice and sugarcane. In Andhra Pradesh, I have the most important crop, which is tobacco, groundnut. tobacco, groundnut, and rice. Tobacco and groundnut mostly practiced where I do not have, where there is a less amount of rainfall. Maybe in the seasons where I do not have much of rainfall, appalana tobacco groundnut ഒക്കെ cultivate ചെയ്യുന്നത്. മറ്റു സമയങ്ങളിൽ when there is good amount of rainfall, they will be cultivating rice. Right. Right. Yes. Talking about the other economic activities, I have my coastal fishing. So aquaculture is an important activity. Aquaculture, marine fishing is an important activity in this region. The problems pertaining to this region is monocropping. Monocropping ആണ്, monoculture ആണ്. ഇവിടെ അതേ സംഭവമാണ്. And I'm talking about 6th region. That is my Haryana plains also. There's a problem of monocultivation. In the 10th region also, there is a problem of monocropping. So because of that, the soils are becoming deteriorated in terms of its fertility. And then if I'm talking about the 9th region, which is my western coastal plains, so my Malabar plains and my Konkan plains, starting from Maharashtra till up to Kerala, that belt is what I call it as my western coastal plains. Excellent plains, excellent for plantation crops like rubber and spices and coffee. Yes, plantation crops like rubber, spices, coffee, coconut, these are all grown in this part. Annual rainfall is greater than 200 centimeters. I'll be having my temperatures of about 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. High value crops can be grown in the 9th region, which is my plain, western coastal plain. Now coming to the interior portion. Now coming on to the interior portion. Let us start from the south of India. This portion. This portion. This is my, what we call it as the southern parts of the plateau. Southern parts of the plateau. Then I have my eastern parts of the plateau, northern parts, and central part. So this will be my eastern part of the plateau. This portion will be my central part of the plateau. Not eastern. This will be number 12. Please take down the numbers from your own book. And finally, I have number 15, which is my islands. So this is my southern part of the plateau. This is eastern part of the plateau. And I have my central part of the plateau and northern part of the plateau. Okay. So this is how I divide my agroclimatic region. First of all, let's talk about the southern plateau region. It is an interior portion of the Deccan. It lies in the leeward side of my Western Ghats. Now, before starting the 11th region, 10 regions we have discussed so far. Is there any doubts on the 10 regions? Is there any doubts on the 10 regions? Please tell me if there is a yes or no, then we can move forward. Otherwise, I'll be stuck with this topic. Okay. Okay, no doubts. Fine then. Okay, then we can move forward. Now listen. 10th region കഴിഞ്ഞു. Now we are in the 11th portion. 11th portion. Now look at this portion. Look at this 11th number. We are talking about, it's present in the leeward side of the Western Ghats. When I say leeward side of the Western Ghats, I'm not getting that much of rainfall. I'm not getting that much amount of rainfall. So it refers to the interior portions of Deccan, which includes the drier portions of Karnataka, the drier portions of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh region, and southern portions of Maharashtra and southern Maharashtra region. Intensely dry region, about 50 to 100 centimeters of rainfall is what I get, 50 to 100 centimeters. it is a region where I practice the farming practices. So mostly crops like millets, oilseeds, pulses. Millets, oilseeds, and pulses will be grown in this region. I'll be having crops like millets, oilseeds, and pulses. Another thing to notice here is when I speak of oil seeds, when I speak of oil seeds, again, the most important oil seed which is grown in this region is I'll be having palm cultivation, and then I will be having some amount of, not some amount, a significant amount of groundnut and sunflower cultivation. Okay, so that those are my crops. And then coming on to the next region, which is my one second. Let's talk about the 12th region. That is, what is this region? This is my Eastern Plateau region. Yes, this is my Eastern Plateau region. So it extends over the Dandakaranya Plateau, which is my Chhattisgarh. I write it down. Dandakaranya Plateau. Plateau. So it extends over Chhattisgarh, very, very poor developed region on Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, these regions, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, interior portions of Odisha, and Jharkhand. Climatically, it receives rainfall about 80 to 100 centimeters of rainfall, 80 to 100 centimeters of rainfall. Mostly rice will be grown when there is good amount of rainfall. And when there is less amount of rainfall, I'll be having crops like maize, millets, oil seeds, and potato. You can include pulses also. Okay, so these are the major crops and the agricultural climatic regions in this particular climatic region. And then we have 13 and 14. Now coming to 13, which is my, this is 11th one is Southern Plateau. So this becomes my Central Plateau. 13th is Central Plateau. 14th is Northern Plateau. So Central Plateau. Central Plateau, again, it includes portions of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, portions of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. There is complete scarcity of water. Cotton is the major crop here, apart from millets and oil seeds. Cotton is the major crop here. Right, and then when I move on to my northern parts of plateau, my northern part of plateau, it comes under what is called as the Malwa region. It comes under the Malwa region. Again, cotton is the major crop here, apart from wheat, because Madhya Pradesh, our central portion another. So this is Malwa Madhya Pradesh portion. So wheat is a major crop here. Cotton is also cultivated. Pulses. Mostly they practice rain-fed agriculture. Rain is about 25 to 75 centimeters. Since this region is developed, or you can say since this region is developed in terms of irrigation, wherever it is highly irrigated, I can grow wheat and oilseeds. Okay, So that is it with regard to my different parts of mainland India. Now coming to the island portion, number 15, island portion. So here you will be mostly having good rainfall because 200 to 50 centimeters easily you can get. It is a kind of an equatorial climate, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep Islands. So equatorial climate ആണ്. Main crops are rice, areca nut, and then you have this one, coconut, cassava. Cassava is your tapioca, kiഴങ്ങ്. So these are the major crops. Coconut is also important. In fact, this is the most important crop. So these are the major crops with regard to the island regions. Now, future development in this region, future development is mostly with regard to marine fishing. Okay. So that is how 15 types of agroclimatic regions are being classified by the got classified by the Planning Commission with the help of National Remote Sensing Agency and my ICAR. Okay, right? Now let's move on to the next set of agro classification, which is agro ecological regionalization. Nothing, this is very similar to agroclimatic regionalization, but here I will be talking about the flora and the fauna of that region also. Or you can say, I'll be talking about the biodiversity of that region, or you can say, I'll be talking about the ecology aspects of that region. Apart from the climate, apart from the factor that how climate influences agriculture, if I'm going to talk about the flora and the fauna characteristics, or otherwise the biodiversity characteristics, or otherwise the ecological aspects of that region, then I am going to talk about the agro-ecological regionalization of India. So ACR demarcates the physiographical conditions based on climate alone, while the agricultural agroclimatic regionalization tries to classify agriculture on the basis of climate alone. Agroecological regionalization is going to talk about the genetic diversity of that particular region, or the biodiversity of that particular region, or the biodiversity of that particular region. So India is going to be divided on the basis of bioagricultural or bioecological regions. Again, ICAR was involved in it. One another organization that got involved in this is NBSSLUP, which is the National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning. National Bureau of Soil Survey, National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning. Excuse me. Twenty agroecological regions have been classified as per this classification. India has been divided into 20 AERs. Based on these two organizations' work, 20 agroecological regions have been classified. ഇനി അതിന് 20 എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ അത് is that big? Yes, it is big, but let me tell you, it is very, very similar to agroclimatic classification. It is very similar to agroclimatic classification. So it's not complicated, but you just have to add maybe ഇവിടെ എവിടെയൊക്കെ കുറെ ആനിമലിന്റെ പേര് മാത്രമാണ് നമ്മൾ ആഡ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത് നമ്മൾ when we dealt about that we did not say that in the Himalayas I will be having goats, pashmina goats, അതൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ല. പക്ഷെ ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ പഠിക്കുമ്പോൾ we will be adding the fauna and the flora of that region also. So if I'm talking about Himalayan region, I will be telling that apart from those conditions which I learned here, I'll be having some pashmina goats. Pashmina goats, get from the pashmina shawls in Kashmir. I will be talking about that goats. Similarly, if I'm talking about the Rajasthan plains, the dry Rajasthan Marustali plains, I will be telling, yes, I can grow millets, I can grow oil seeds. It's a very, very dry land. I will be also having the presence of tropical thorny forest. So if I'm going to talk about the flora and the fauna of that region, then what is it? That is my agroecological regionalization. Fine. I will not be describing about the 20 regions. It will take a lot of time. But the repetition ആണ് ഇത് മറ്റേതിന്റെ repetition പോലെ തന്നെയാണ് ഇരിക്കുന്നത്. So you have it in Kuller, you can read it from Kuller. Right? You can read it from Kuller. The only thing is you should be adding some species and some forest names. Some forest names here and there. So that is the thing here. That is the thing here. Suppose let's say that any other thing we can take. Let's take for example something that you know. See, if I'm talking about the Deccan Plateau region, apart from talking about the black cotton soil region, what crops will be grown, I need to talk about the tropical dry deciduous forest. Tropical dry deciduous forest will be found here. Just one line. This will make it as an agroecological regionalization. Maybe you add a specific animal species, or you add a specific vegetation species. That is a part of my agroecological regionalization. Fine. So broadly, this is my agroclimatic classification. This is my agroclimatic classification. There is one more thing that we need to add here. Give the heading as cropping system. Give the heading as cropping system. First thing is, cropping systems can be of many types. Like cropping system, how efficient am I utilizing that particular resource? How efficiently I'm utilizing the resource? Agriculture ആണ് നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നത്. We need land, we need water, we need the required amount of seeds and fertilizers and so on. എന്തുമാത്രം efficiencyയോടെയാണ് ഞാൻ യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നത്? That decides my cropping systems. Cropping systems can be of many types. Number one, take down in the format and take some running notes. This is something that will be important for your prelims. Just a hint matram. Let me ask you this: has agriculture been taken in as a part of your GS discussion? Otherwise, we can skip it. Has agriculture been taken as a part of your GS? I'm talking about intercropping, monocropping, relay cropping. ഇതൊക്കെ അവർ എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ടോ in GS? I repeat, crop rotation, intercropping, monocropping. No. So we shall take this down. Then we can take it. If it has been done, I thought we will leave it. Okay, so fine, then we'll take it. Number one, cropping system. Number one, what's the first of all? We need to know about the objectives of cropping system. The objective is two objectives. First one is efficient utilization of resources. Like I have my land, water, seeds, fertilizers. ഇതെല്ലാത്തെയും ഒരു efficient ആയിട്ട് utilize ചെയ്യണം. So the first thing is efficient utilization of resources. Number two, obtaining higher productivity or higher returns, obtaining higher productivity or higher returns. Types of cropping systems. Number one, crop rotation. Crop rotation. Okay, crop rotation എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഇത് ഒരു sequential way of cropping ആണ്. It's a sequential way of cropping. Crops are changed from one season to another season and from one year to another year. Sequential changing ആണ്. So suppose let's say make some running notes. The hard and fast definition I'm not giving. I'm just explaining it. Crop rotation it's crops are changed from one year to one year, from a year to year, and from season to season. It's the way in which crop rotation is done is the idea behind crop rotation. The idea behind crop rotation is to maintain the soil fertility. It is a system or it is a practice that is done to maintain the soil fertility. How do you maintain soil fertility? Suppose let's say that I'm going to indulge in rice cropping. So one crop matram, if I'm going to cultivate, it will deplete the soil of its own nutrients. It depletes the soil of its nutrients. So if I am engaging in cropping of rice in a particular season, the next season I should be engaging in cropping of some leguminous plants, like my moong dal, any form of pulses. Okay, so ingane cheyyunna oru idana crop rotation എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ആദ്യം ഞാൻ ഒരു ക്രോപ്പാണ് കൾട്ടിവേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഐ വിൽ ബി എൻഗേജിങ് ഇൻ അനദർ ക്രോപ്പ്. സോ ഇത് സീക്വൻഷ്യൽ ആയിട്ട് ഒരു റെഗുലർ ആയിട്ട് rice legumes like this. If I'm going in a sequential order, I call it as a crop rotation practice. The next practice is the practice of intercropping. It is a practice of intercropping. Now, before understanding what is intercropping, understand this. In a field, in one region, I have in a field, in one region, I have maize. Maize is like your corn. Maize is like Indian corn. So I have maize completely. Okay, in one section. In another section, I'm having groundnut. Next, I'm having groundnut. So everywhere groundnut. Next side, I am having maybe jowar. Okay, so jowar everywhere. This way in which there is a simultaneous cropping. There is a simultaneous cultivation of two or more crops in the same field at the same time. I repeat, simultaneous cultivation of two or more crops in the same field at the same time, within bracket you can write simultaneously, is called intercropping. There is a ratio. എനിക്ക് ഒരു 1 acre land ഉണ്ട്. 1/3 of it I am taking it for maize cultivation. 1/6 of it I'm taking it for jowar cultivation. The remaining I'm using it for groundnut. So there is a definite ratio in which I engage in intercropping. Intercropping is a type of multiple cropping. Intercropping is a type of multiple cropping. What is multiple cropping? Now understand, we learned about something called as monoculture or monocropping. What is monocropping? Growing the same crops again and again in a single field. That is monocropping. Rice. When I grow again and again in the same field, that is monocropping. Monocropping in the opposite are multiple cropping. Multiple cropping, when I grow two or more crops in the same field at the same time in a year, if I'm going two or more crops, it's called as multiple cropping. I repeat, in the same field, if I'm growing two or more crops in a year, it is called as multiple cropping. One type of multiple cropping is intercropping. So what are the other types? I'm coming to it. I have another type of multiple cropping. Another type of multiple cropping is multi-layered cropping. Multi-layered cropping. Multi-layered cropping. What is multi-layered cropping? See, chala crops occur, it may be very, very tall. Then there are some crops which are very, very short. This tall tree will act as a protection for my short crop. If I'm talking about sugarcane and mustard, sugarcane is a tall crop, mustard is a small crop. So sugarcane will act as a protection to mustard. So this kind of growing different height of crops in the same field is called as multi-layered cropping. So what is multi-layered cropping? Multi-layered cropping is also a type of multiple cropping where I'm cultivating two or more crops in the same field simultaneously, but those crops are of different heights. Those crops are of different heights. Therefore, the larger crop, the taller crop will protect the smaller crop, maybe from erosion, maybe from some pest attack or something like that. This is the idea behind multi-layered cropping. Then there is one more type of multiple cropping. Can I go to the next type of multiple cropping? Idum clear aano? Intercropping pinna multi-layered cropping. Yes, everybody. Fine. Then let's move on to the next type because you should not be confused. The next one is mixed cropping. It's not mixed farming. Mixed farming alla, mixed cropping aanu. Mixed cropping nu parayumbo, one area I'm cultivating carrot. In another area, I'm cultivating beetroot. In another area, I'm cultivating cauliflower. No specific area has been devoted. It's like a fixed ratio allada, a definite land pattern allada. Chumma I'm cultivating here and there, something and some things. That is mixed cropping. So the only difference between mixed cropping and intercropping is intercropping എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് അവിടെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു ഡയഗ്രാം വരച്ചിട്ട് maize, groundnut, pinna, what did I say? Pepper, something. So maize, groundnut, pepper. So this kind of definite ratio I have. That ratio is not present in mixed cropping. Mixed cropping, if you want as a definition, mixed cropping is the cultivation of two or more crops. It's a type of multi-cropping. Mixed cropping is also a type of multiple cropping where I'm cultivating two or more crops simultaneously at the same time. Simultaneously, at the same time in the same field, but without a definite ratio. But without a definite ratio. It is a type of subsistence farming, and it is done to reduce the risk of crop loss. Cauliflower, if it is gone, I will have beetroot. If beetroot is gone, I have carrot. So agricultural risk diversification ആണ് ഇതൊരു agricultural risk diversification ആണ് പക്ഷെ ഇത് എന്താ ചെയ്യുന്നത് നമുക്കൊരു പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇത് ഈ ഒരു സ്ഥലം ഒരു 1 acre land ആണെങ്കിൽ some 1/4 of that area is for beetroot. This particular region is for carrot. അങ്ങനെ proper ആയിട്ട് divide ചെയ്യാത്ത if I'm just randomly cultivating here and there, that is my mixed cropping. That is my mixed cropping. Okay. Okay. Then I have another method or another that's about multiple cropping. Multiple cropping theory. We'll go to something else. We have monocropping, opposite of multiple cropping. You can take down that also. Monocropping, like only one crop is grown on a single piece of land throughout the year, and in the next year and the year following that. ഒരു ക്രോപ്പ് തന്നെയാണ് ഗ്രോ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. So mostly in Tamil Nadu, most of the regions like Kaveri Delta Plains, uh, rice is continuously grown. So I'm going to say the fertility of that area, of that particular land will be affected in the long run. In the long run, the fertility will be definitely affected. Then I have ratoon cropping. What is ratoon cropping? We have dealt about it. This ratoon cropping, it's the cropping that is done for sugarcane. Ratoon cropping. We have done this before, I believe. Ratoon cropping. When I dealt about sugarcane industry, I remember talking about ratooning. Ratooning or ratoon cropping. What happens is, suppose let's say that I have a sugarcane crop. Usually it is done with sugarcane. Just a second, I'm getting a phone call. Just a second. Right. Now coming to ratoon cropping, it is usually done in the case of sugarcane. Now look at this. Sugarcane something like this is there. You have branches, you have splits here and there. Now the bottom portion, it's left in the field, and the rest of it it's actually cut. Now what happens is the bottom portion grows into a new plant. Okay, so we call it as a stubble cropping. Stubble cropping. The left out portion is also called as a stubble. It's called as a stubble cropping or ratoon cropping. And the best example is sugarcane. Another example of ratoon cropping. Can you give me a crop? Stubble grow chain or a crop. One I said is sugarcane. Another crop. Your bananas. Banana. Yes. What do you call it? Your banana plant. that usually you do not cut down the banana plant, right? From that old banana plant, you have another small plantain crop which will come up. So that's also an example of rattooning. The problem with ratoon cropping is it's good. We need not come up with crops every time. From the old crop itself, the second crop will grow. Good, nice. The problem is after certain time, after some 1 or 2 crops, the yield of ratoon cropping will be significantly dropped. The yield of this is a major disadvantage with ratooning. The yield will drop. Okay, so that is the disadvantage with regard to ratoon cropping. And then we have relay cropping. We have relay cropping. Relay cropping. Relay, what's about relay? Relay race ഒക്കെ കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ? Relay race എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ one person will run with the flag or something, with a stick or something. He will give it to the next person. He will start running. Relay race. അങ്ങനെയാണല്ലോ relay race ചെയ്യുന്നത്. Now relay race പോലെ തന്നെയാണ്. Like relay cropping is also done. Uru crop will be just now, it will be sown. I mean, it will be let's say that first of all, I'm planting a crop. Okay, I'm planting a crop in a field. I'm planting a crop. ഇതൊരു కొంచెం ഇത് വളർന്നതിന് ശേഷം I will be immediately planting sowing the seeds of the next crop. This will grow into a tall crop and this will be in a small stage. Immediately I will go with the third one. And by that time, when this crop grows, it will be nearing the harvesting stage. I will cut this. So that continuously I'm having an output from this particular field. I repeat, it's like growing 2 or more crops simultaneously, but the harvesting of one crop, follow me very, very closely here. The harvesting of one crop is done before the other crops come to the reproductive stages. I repeat, the harvesting of the first crop is done before the completion of life cycle of the other 2 crops. അത് ഇപ്പൊ തന്നെ അത് ചെറിയൊരു പ്ലാന്റ് ആയിട്ട് കാണും, but before that the first crop is completely cut down. It is completely harvested. The advantage is it's also called as overlap cropping. It's also called as overlap cropping. The advantage is the farmer continuously gets an income from his field. The farmer continuously gets an income from the field. So this is called as relay cropping. It is usually done in a field which is very, very, very fertile. Okay, so these are the different types of cropping patterns in the farming, in agriculture. Let me see if I have missed out something. Not much, right? Any doubts in this parts? Any doubts here? Perfect. We will continue. I think we'll be having a class tomorrow also. There will be 2 sessions tomorrow. That's what I've been told. We'll meet tomorrow. By that small information, agriculture, this topic is done. No. We have to do some current affairs based topics. Yes, no. We still have some current affairs based topics. Other we'll be moving on to something else. So tomorrow also agriculture will be continuing, but again that will be important for your prelims. So that is it for today. Thank you so much. We can leave now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, good night.